Okay, welcome back to Time Management for the Average Joe. Hopefully you've seen the pilot, but this is episode number 1. So I'm Rob from Sydney, Australia, and as you can tell, I'm just an average Joe as well. I love wearing my boonie and dressing comfortably for these videos. You'll very rarely see me wearing a suit either. So the purpose of this series is to offer you advice to the average Joe, and not only how to put down a foundation of time management skills, but also how to build upon them. I also want to make sure these videos don't go for any longer than around 10 minutes, shorter if possible, so you can receive really good practical information and you don't have to sit through a 30-minute lecture. Okay, here we go. So on the pilot, I gave 3 pieces of information to get you started in learning the basics of time management. And they were, number 1, always have a diary or your phone on you, your mobile phone or your cell phone. Always categorize the things you need to do and make to-do lists. And number 3, always carry over your to-do list items from the previous day if possible, or the previous week, and make them the first things you do on the next day or the next week or your next list. That's very, very important. You always carry things that didn't get done over to your next list. So if you haven't seen the pilot of this series, go and check that out, and you'll find that on my channel, and come back and start watching the video, which is called episode number 1. So before we expand on a couple of these points, I just want to share some thoughts on a few different mindsets I've seen over the years, which are stumbling blocks to you who are managing, for you to manage your time really well. So I believe many people with time management issues have these type of reasons, and that's okay. Depends on what category you fall in. We're going to sort of skip through these really, really quickly, but one reason could be just the upbringing. Maybe time management, you were never modeled on how to manage your time really well. Either your parents or your teachers, or maybe those who took care of you, never really showed you how to manage your time. But maybe it's also your personality, and that's okay as well. But some people are very relaxed, some people are very chilled, but unfortunately in some cases some people are very lazy, and they struggle to organise their own life and get things done in a structured and ordered way. If time management was never modelled to you as a child, you could very well have no idea what is involved in correctly managing your time. You may be always under the pump, you may be always chasing your tail, you may always be late to things, you may always find that you just can never get things done on time, or even get lots of things done in a particular time frame. But unfortunately, if you are inherently lazy or too relaxed in your approach, that this is potentially also going to cause you grief. And it may also cause grief or issues for your family or friends, or your employer, or those who rely on you. I'll go into further details of that particular idea and these points on episode 2 of Time Management for the Average Joe, but we're going to unpack the 3 points that I spoke about on the pilot. You remember the pilot talked about always carrying a diary or carrying your phone or your cell phone, depends on what country you're from. So when we have certain things we need to get done immediately, we need to write them down immediately in our diary or set a note on our phone calendar. Make sure you also write the exact same entry in the night before and set a timer for 4 hours before on your phone on the day of the task so you don't forget. So what I mean by that is, let's say you've got to take your child to a drama at 11 o'clock on Saturday. So what you do is you write down somewhere on 9 o'clock p.m. on the Friday night, take child to drama at 11 o'clock on Saturday. And then on Saturday you set a timer for yourself at somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock, and another entry saying take child to drama. And then if you still have issues with sometimes forgetting things, make sure you have another timer set for 1 hour before you need to leave. And especially if you need to get lots and lots of things done before you take your child to drama, You don't want to be rushing and potentially driving irresponsibly or getting angry at other family members because things aren't going right in that way. So I'm going to share a fairly involved example. It may apply to you, but this example shows you the types of things that a regular Joe, an average Joe, may have to do each day or each week. So let's say, example, you've got to take your cat to the vet, you have to pay some bills, pick up your dry cleaning, get your car serviced, pick up your child from school, get a birthday card for a family member, and also have a coffee with your neighbour. Now that's lots and lots of different things that have to be done, and it may not necessarily need to be done on one day. You may be able to spread it over a couple of days. Well, let's presume all this sort of stuff needs to happen at the start of the week. So, as I said before, first, as soon as you know about each task, enter the task and the time it must be done immediately. Don't wait until you get home. Don't wait until you've finished reading the paper. Don't wait until you've finished your coffee. Don't wait until you've filled your cart with petrol. If you can do it safely, fill in your mobile phone, your cell phone, your diary straight away so you don't forget. And one of the things I've had to do over the years is make sure that I did that because I would forget. And so it's very, very important that as part of your time management process, that in order to not forget things, is that you enter information into your diary or your phone immediately. So let's consider, as I said in the pilot, what is urgent and what is important. So as an example, so is taking the cat to get its vaccinations, it may be important, but is it urgent? Now, unless your cat is sick, well, that's going to be urgent, but that probably won't end up on a diary entry. So taking the cat to the vet is important, but vaccinations don't necessarily come under something that's urgent. If you plan your time right, you'll be able to make sure that cat gets there at the right time, but it's not necessarily urgent, but it is important to make sure your pet is looked after in that way. But what about getting a birthday card for your family member? Is it important or is it urgent? Well, you know what? In order to give some happiness to your family member or friend or whoever the card is for, it's important, of course it is. But it's not necessarily urgent. And especially if you know exactly when the birthday card is meant to be given to that family member or friend, well then you don't buy it on the day before the birthday. In order to manage your time correctly, make sure you buy the birthday card a week out or a few days out. But if you know the birthday is on the Thursday, buy the card on the Monday, set your calendar entry on the Sunday night. And an entry might be something as simple as buy card from supermarket tomorrow. And then on Monday, make sure you have a diary entry for a time that will be suitable that will say buy birthday card for so and so forth at 10 o'clock. And then set a timer for yourself to remind you to look at your phone to make sure that you don't miss out on that opportunity as well. So is picking up your child from school important or is it urgent? Well, obviously it's important. We can't leave our children sitting around the playground, can we? But it's not necessarily urgent. And the only reason why it would become urgent would be if you're running late. And often time management comes down to people who leave things to the very, very last minute. And going to pick your child up often becomes quite stressful and people become panicked because they have left it too long to leave the house, and sometimes traffic can cause all sorts of trouble and you become panicked. So yes, it's important that you pick up your child from school, but don't allow it to become urgent. Make sure you assess for traffic. Make sure you assess for if you need to put petrol in the car as you go to pick your child up, and make sure that you write that in as a diary entry as well if that's something that you may forget if it's not a regular thing. So what about getting your car serviced? Well, is it important or is it urgent? Well, depending on the state of the vehicle or the currency of the registration, or if it hasn't been any mechanical repairs required, it may be urgent and it may be important. If it's simply just going for a service, well, that can be done probably any time. Again, if you know your car needs to be serviced, you don't leave it to the last minute. If you know it needs to be done in June, you ring the mechanic and say, can we book the car in and get it serviced in a month's time or in 3 weeks' time? And then, let's say the car is being serviced on a Wednesday, what do? you put a diary entry in on the Tuesday night before you go to bed, reminds you to read that says car to be serviced tomorrow at, and then whatever time you had organised with the mechanic. So what about picking up your dry cleaning? Well, that may be important and urgent, but for the most part, it's probably not urgent unless there's a special business suit in there, or a party dress, or your child's school uniform. For the most part, it's probably not urgent. So if it's important, again, write down in your diary entry or put in your phone, pick up the dry cleaning. Let's say that's on Thursday and you put it in on the Tuesday. Well, then make sure the diary entry on the Wednesday night says pick up dry cleaning at, and let's say it's 2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. So then you go and make sure you put the entry in for the Wednesday afternoon, and then make sure you leave enough time to go and pick up that dry cleaning, and don't allow it to become urgent. Make sure it is done in a timely manner. So know where your keys are, know where your wallet is, know where you're going, and make sure you give yourself time. Time often becomes stressful for people when they don't allow enough time to get somewhere. So what about paying the bills? Is that urgent or is that important? Well, of course, it is important. But again, let's not allow paying the bills to become urgent. If you know there is a due date for an electricity bill, or a water bill, or a school fee, or a car registration, we're often sent those bills and those paperwork at least 1 month out from the due date. So everything becomes urgent when it's a day or two before the due date. But if it's only a month out, well, it's important. You have to pay those bills, or the car registration will run out, or they'll turn your electricity off. But if you know that that particular bill has to be paid, pay it earlier than later. And if you can do that, well, then the urgency will be removed, the stress will be lowered, and your time will be easily managed in that way. So let's not forget about the timers. I've spoken about that a few times. That's probably one of the most important things, is setting timers, not just entry details in your phone or your diary, but also setting timers, because sometimes you may be in a noisy environment, or sometimes you may not be able to hear that ding ding of the reminder telling you to go and do a particular task. So what I also do is I set a timer as well, where I set make sure there's an alarm that goes off on my phone. So as an example, if I'm required to go off and pick up a child from a school, and it's not a regular thing that I would do, well, then I would set an alarm to remind me 1 hour before I need to leave the house or leave my place of work to go and pick up my child. So even if I miss out on seeing the diary entry, I'll also have an alarm to back that up as well. So writing double entries, having double alarms, all that sort of stuff will absolutely help you and assist you in the managing of your time, because you won't forget things, and you'll be getting to a point where you're planning and being able to make sure that these things are at the front of your mind as opposed to the back of your mind. So those are very, very important things. Always having diary entries, always making sure your to-do lists go from one day to the next, and always updating those to-do lists. Always have a to-do list to do every single day. That to-do list might be very, very simple, or it might be expanded out to have 5 or 10 things. But the to-do lists are very, very important. Always having your diary and the entries and the alarms, always doing that. So for these episodes, I'll be making sure that I set diary entries and alarms to remind me to continue with this episode series of the time management of the average Joe. And I want to make sure that I give you great content and great information, so I don't want to forget. So my timers and my calendar entries will also be very, very important for me as well. So I really, really hope that episode 1, along with the pilot, has been some excellent information. Make sure you go back and watch the videos again. And if there's lots of information there that you've never ever really done, or information that you didn't quite understand the first time around, well, go back and watch the videos again. And if you want, you can send me comments and send me some ideas on the address part there, down there on the bottom of the video. If you're really enjoying this video series, make sure you give me a thumbs up. and subscribe to this channel as well, as I continue to offer more episodes on the management of the average Joe. So I really hope you've enjoyed episode 1. Episode 2 is going to be coming up very soon, of which I'll be talking about assisting with some of the personality traits that you may have as a person, or assisting with the way you were brought up as a child, and maybe that you weren't modeled time management. I'm going to go through some of those processes as well. So this is bye from Sydney, Australia. This is Rob Greenup, and thanks for watching, and bye for now.